Coming today to the Writers' Showcase. Good afternoon. My name is Lord Commander Dunn, and I am here with a very large collection of very talented guests. And I'm just very excited to hear more of their work this week. I think that we will start off with His Lordship, the Prince Regent of Hell, shall we always say. Back from his long hiatus to the land of tea and crumpets rather than Oreos and milkshakes, please welcome our good friend, Tarek.
Here's to the bard and I'm calling thee plum. Here's to the beast and the rest of you scum. The cage is knocked in and the town is aflame, and it's ours for the taking, though you get the fame.
I'd say it's a pleasure to be back, but that would be a damn lie.
Indeed, probably.
It is. Admittedly, though, it is nice to be here once again.
Always
glad to know I still have a place here.
Hey, of course. Just because you abandoned us to go see your attractive British model girlfriend, friend.
And my editor. Can't forget about that.
And your editor and future wife.
Wow, there a pool going on I don't know about?
I'm just placing bets. If you guys don't get married by the end of us, there is no such thing as true love.
Fair enough.
Anyway, let's bring on the others. First off,
Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
Hey, that time was me. I thought that last one was me, and I got really confused at the end. But that one was me. Welcome back to the States, Tariq.
It's Tarek, but thank you.
No, okay, fair. And also,
we've met before, man.
I know, and I probably mispronounced it then as well. It's a power play I do.
It's a power play.
Yeah,
I'll show you a power play. All right.
No, I remember you, dog.
All right.
There's the queen. Ian in the chat.
Did you post the link? Just ask. I didn't get a notification.
Yeah, I did. I posted writers, but as the mass link rather than everyone. But I can do everyone as well.
Okay. All right. I was just asking. All right.
Yeah, you can do that just in case. All right. And we have some other people in the chat. Please welcome.
Sup? Welcome back to hell, Tarek. We've been waiting for you.
I escaped one to come to another. Fuck.
Out of the pot and into the friggin' boiler, I guess.
Well,
look, I forgot the phrase halfway through saying it.
Well,
out of the frying pan and into the fire, you dipshit.
Admittedly, I do need to come up. Speaking of which, we probably need to do a bad movie night sometime with a Neil Breen film.
What the fuck?
Only if Trip is there. I admire just how she does things. She makes things entertaining.
Okay. Yeah,
somehow
we-
she somehow manages to turn the worst experiences into comedy gold.
Indeed. Like the
Man,
room.
if only I could do that.
Yep. Like the room.
Bruh,
Chess-
I
chess-
sat down and watched it. I sat
ahead,
down
Doug.
and I sat down and listened through that shit during my shift. I'm like, Dunn, you are a fucking sadist.
Wait, you listened to it?
Well, yes. I mean, well, I also looked at it every now and then too because I can.
Well, you have that power. Oh, I'm out of touch today. Wait, so you just listened to
Okay.
the room? It just seems like you wouldn't want to watch the movie. Like, it
She
sounds
listened
awful
to
no
our
matter what.
commentary on the room.
Ah, I get it. now.
Yes.
All right.
And
Carry on.
yeah, I won a bet, and that was my victory prize. I also made her watch Max Magician and the Legend of the Rings.
Oh, you fuck.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds
It's
really
bad.
awful. Yeah, no, it sounds like the worst. Of the worst.
It kind of is, yeah. It is probably one of the worst movies in existence. Like, I would actually say it's worse than The Room.
That is because you've seen so few movies. I had Becca watch Manos Hands of Fate
Oh,
yesterday.
Oh yeah, I need to watch that. Yeah, thank you for reminding
Thankfully,
me.
I had her
mention-
watch the Mystery Science version.
Okay, so there's at least commentary there. I see.
Yeah, there's a buffer. There's a
I would-
buffer.
I would argue that The Room is a brilliant social commentary. It's just it's dark, man.
What a Reddit opinion. What a
No.
Reddit opinion.
No, I haven't been on Reddit in like a while now. I don't even
You
know.
see, guys. Actually, you guys, The Room is a very brilliant movie. You guys,
No,
just
no.
all
I wouldn't. I mean,
aren't
in the
smart enough
same-
to understand
cut
it.
out-
It's brilliant commentary.
cut out any kind of agency behind it. But like it's I don't know. I'm not ever gonna watch it again. So this is also just like me when I made up a better story in my head for what was gonna go on with the sequel trilogy.
We got other people to bring in, though, Dunn. I just think they
We
have
do.
something to say about this.
I am the scales of justice, conductor of the choir of death. Sing, brother, sing, sing.
Hello, and Happy New Year's, you all.
Happy New
Oh.
Year's.
Hello.
What was that last clip from?
Also, Becca, I will have you know that I am fucking hilarious.
So the last clip is from Mad Max Fury Road, I think probably one of the best action films of the 2010s.
All right,
Agreed.
I was told back then to check it out, and I've held strong so far.
You probably should. It's really good.
No, I
There
haven't
are-
watched the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard some shit about it, but at the same
Those
time,
people
I
are
watched
dumb.
film the first
The
time around.
last person who said
All I
shit
remember was
about it was Noble.
Yeah.
Are you really saying Noble had a point?
You know what? That's an excellent point. Never mind.
Yeah.
Retracted that statement real quick.
hmm
Yeah, if you heard of that Noble said it was bad, it's like we convinced him that his problems were majority just personal preference problems.
No, it wasn't personal
Yeah.
preference. It was shallow.
Hashtag Noble did nothing wrong.
Oh god.
Oh, that's funny.
Mm.
Okay. Yep.
All right, you're
I
you're gonna
couldn't-
you're getting a visit from your. I'm sorry, but you're getting a visit from your local commissar. Bring him in.
I am. So let's bring him in. All right, 1 second. All righty. There.
Frataco!
Fucking
Everyone go in
glorious.
gulag.
intro.
Go straight to
Damn.
gulag.
Everyone.
Special gulag.
Everyone.
Except you, Tarek. I want to see what you are doing. Then I decide whether or not you go in gulag.
Fair enough.
Undoubtedly, I'm going in there because I'm probably going to go to hell. Over a lot of my.
Hell is where
Comrade
we send
Commissar
good people.
Carl,
Bad
are-
ones go in gulag.
I was about to say,
Indeed,
hell
comrade.
nicer than Gulag. Gulag is where bad people go.
I don't know. I've been thinking. I was thinking for a while. Do masochists go to hell?
Yes, because that's where Pinhead lives. Have you ever seen Hellraiser?
Yeah, I don't know. So masochists
Holy
go to
fuck!
hell.
Should I
if
still
they've
have to
been
see
good?
that film?
That's the way I see it. That they do go to hell because like, where else would they go? Why I get the irony of the situation, but you see what I mean? Like, it's weird. It's weird. We have such sights to show you.
Well,
Oh my
probably
god.
making too big of a thing of this, but I do have a theological sort of answer to the question. This what like basically I think major issue that we're having is that we are like saying this person is a this, right? Like this person is a masochist. So do they go to hell? And the thing is, it's like that's not like you're conflating the masochism, which is like a sort of degeneracy or deviancy, right? You're conflating that with the person. The person is not that. The person in perfection doesn't have that. It's like you're calling them, a spike on a virus when they're the whole virus.
All right, so we're all in agreement. Yuri's going to hell, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
true.
I mean,
Boiler room of hell.
Yeah, he's guilty.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the
All
way.
right.
even
As
you
long as we're all in
don't.
agreement.
Even you.
We'll see. All right, so
It's okay. I'll see you all down over there.
So who's on first?
I would say we go. Does anybody have any time constraints that I need to be
No.
aware of?
No,
Nope.
I don't.
Not
Okay,
that I'm aware of.
great. So let's just go in a clockwise circle, starting with Sir Bard. Or does the Bard want to go last?
I mean, I can go first. It's not a problem at all.
Great.
Just give me a moment to clear the space in front of me. All right. So last time I was on, we were. Give me a moment. I have the document up. I just need to get to it. Last time we were here, Aviana had started her new job at the Scattered Star Tavern. Like all children, until they learn how the sausage is made, she was enamored by it. She's like, "Oh boy, I get to work at the place I've always wanted to come to." Now, that was before they put a mop in her hand, or rather a broom, and had her kill a giant rat in the basement. Like, this rat was about half the size of her. And then she had to clean up. And last we left off, she was being accosted by a drunken sailor and was getting overwhelmed. And the last thing she saw before the chapter ended was Tarek checking up on her. And that leads us to where we are today. Well, you clearly know my name, but I'm afraid I can't seem to remember yours, Tarek said, rubbing the back of his shaggy brown hair. You forgot my name. After you tricked me into going into the college, Aviana said, her voice trembling with anger. The college? Tarek's questioned, scratching his bushy beard. A moment later, his eyes went wide and he looked down at her. Wait a moment. You're... Tarek hesitated. Alexandra. My name is Aviana, she answered with a growl, interrupting the mage's mumbling. Aviana, that's it, Tarek said, snapping his fingers. Well, it's no wonder I don't recognize you. You look nothing like the half-starved little girl I met several months ago. Before Aviana could respond, she heard the angry voice of York behind Tarek. What are you doing behind my bar? As Tarek moved to the side, she saw York looking rather displeased. Yet, as Tarek stood up and faced the man, his expression quickly changed to one of surprise, then embarrassment. Master DeLu, it's a pleasure to see you again, Tarek said with a bow. Lord Pranka, please forgive me. I didn't realize it was you, York said, his face turning as pale as a sheet. You know you're always welcome at my tavern, but if you'd like a drink, I'd prefer you request one, as opposed to getting it yourself. York said slowly, choosing his words with exceptional care. I would never dream of robbing you, York, Tarek laughed. I was just helping this child back to her feet. She slipped, and I just wanted to make sure she was all right, Tarek said, turning to Aviana and giving her a subtle wink. That's not true. She didn't fall. She squatted down and started crying about something. Until the sailor had spoken up, Aviana had almost forgotten that he had witnessed her entire ordeal. You're mistaken, friend. I saw her fall, Tarek said. And I say she didn't fall at all, the drunken sailor responded. And I'm saying you're mistaken, Tarek said, turning back to Aviana. Aviana jumped as the sailor slammed his fist into the bar counter. I don't care much for someone calling me a liar, the sailor sneered. At that moment, all conversation in the tavern ceased. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, York said firmly. I'm not leaving until he admits he's wrong, the sailor responded, pushing York away, then grabbing Tarek by his green shirt. Tarek took a deep breath. You realize you're threatening a mage. A mage. A mage! The man laughed as he placed his other hand on Tarek's flaky leathered vest and twisted it. There's no way a tramp like you is a mage. What happened next, Aviana couldn't begin to explain. She saw Tarek's eyes become a bright green, almost as if they were glowing. A moment later, a fierce gale howled through the tavern as if a fierce storm had erupted within. She stood up just in time to watch the front door violently open, threatening to rip itself from its hinges. The lanterns that hung from the posts around the tavern flew sideways like a flag. The hair and clothing of the patrons flew in the direction of the wind as mugs and plates on the table were thrown to the floor. In that moment, she saw the drunk sailor's sunken eyes widen before letting go of Tarek, then falling to the floor. Oh, I apologize, my lord. I was mistaken. Please forgive me, lord. The sailor begged. Glad to see we've reached an understanding, Tarek said calmly. Now leave. Aviana watched as the drunk scampered and fled out the door. After he left, she noticed the shock on everyone's face, including Yorick. The only one who didn't share the look was Catherine. She just looked irritated. Qatar, she heard Tarek mumble. It's all right, everyone. Just a small disagreement. Nothing to worry about, Tarek said, raising his hands, trying to reassure everyone. It took a few moments before people returned to their business, but they still were occasionally sneaking glances at him. Tarek turned back towards Yorick, who was looking even paler than he had before. Like I said, Yorick, she fell, and I was just making sure she was okay. I'll take your word for it, Yorick said, dropping the issue and walking away rather quickly. What in Tyrion's name was that? Catherine hissed. Oh, Catherine, Tarek said with an almost impish grin. Pleasure to see you again. A pleasure. That's what you call destroying my tavern and scaring my customers. Look, I didn't mean to. I don't care what you meant to do, Catherine said, whacking the man after every word. He was defending me, Catherine. Please don't hurt him, Aviana pleaded. Catherine stopped hitting Tarek and looked towards Aviana, then back to him. Defending you or not, that still doesn't excuse him destroying my tavern, Catherine said, crossing her arms. I'll pay for the damages, Catherine. You know I'm good for it. If you were good for it, you'd pay your tab on time. Well, if I paid my tab on time, I'd have no excuse to come and see you, Tarek responded with a sly grin. Catherine growled and without warning flung her hand across the man's face, slapping him on the cheek. Then with a huff, she adjusted her bodice and walked away. I knew you missed me, Tarek called out with a grin. The moment he turned back towards Aviana, he shut his eyes and made a sound akin to a wounded animal. The spot where Catherine hit him was already starting to glow red. Are you all right? Aviana asked. I'll be fine. Maybe, Tarek said as he continued to rub the spot. What about you? Aviana took a look over the bar and groaned at the food and drink all over the floor. I was okay until I saw the mess you made. Sorry about that. I just meant to scare him, but hey, it worked, Tarek said before yelping as he rubbed his red cheek. Aviana almost couldn't contain her giggle. So, may I ask what caused you to slip and what you're doing here anyways? I was getting overwhelmed. This is my first night working here. Well, look at you moving up in the world, from gutter rat to the scattered star. You've really come a long way since when I first met you, Tarek said, almost sounding proud. Aviana blushed and lowered her head for a moment. As for your problem, I find the best way to prevent getting overwhelmed is to only focus on the task in front of you. Ignore everything else. Tarek continued as he took his seat at the bar. Aviana almost laughed. For months, she had been told to be aware of everything. This was the first time she'd ever been told to do the exact opposite. So, you mentioned something about me tricking you. What did you mean? With all the banter, Aviana almost forgot that she was supposed to be angry. She was supposed to be angry with the Skald. Just as she was about to answer, she heard Catherine call out to her. Aviana, what are you doing over there? Clean up this mess. We'll talk later, Tarek said, placing a hand on her shoulder before returning to his drink and quill. Aviana nodded and was just about to walk away when she stopped. Tarek? Aviana said quietly. Tarek looked right into her eyes. Thanks. But don't think that just because you helped me doesn't mean I'm not still mad at you. Tarek let out a laugh as she walked away, then called out, You're not the first, and you're certainly not going to be the last. Aviana had placed her head against one of the walls when she heard the clock tower strike its bell for the 12th and final time. That's it, everyone. That's it, everyone. We're closed for the night. We'll see you all tomorrow, Catherine announced to the dining room. The only people left were Tarek, who was hunched over his book, and a few stragglers who had started to wander out the door. Aviana watched as the more drunken customers stumbled their way through the chairs and tables before reaching the exit. So, how did you enjoy your first night? Catherine asked, turning to Aviana. Aviana was unable to hide her frown. At this point, Catherine was just taunting her. Don't frown. You agreed to this. Aviana gestured to her clothes, which were covered in stains from food and drinks, as well as a little wet from washing dishes. Her hands felt disgusting. Even though she had washed them between clearing tables, she could still feel grime and dirt on them, as well as under her nails. Even though she hadn't seen it for herself, all of the sweat and work had left her hair feeling greasy and disgusting, and no doubt frazzled. Yet Catherine, who had been working just as long as her, still looked as beautiful as when Aviana arrived. How do you stay so clean at this job? Aviana asked. Oh, it's easy. I left the dirty jobs for you, Catherine answered with a cocky smile. Did you at least take care of the dishes? Catherine said as she collected some dharma off at the table. Yes, Catherine, Aviana answered, exasperated. Just because you're tired doesn't mean you can be cross with me, Catherine snapped. If you're really so frustrated, then take the rug out back and beat it clean. Yes, Catherine, Aviana replied, grinding her teeth as she took the mop bucket to the front door and threw the remaining water into the street. After placing the mop and bucket next to the door, she rolled up the rug and took it to the back lot of the tavern. Aviana threw the rug over a laundry pole, exposing its beautifully weaved and brightly colored threads. Reaching over behind her, Aviana picked up a wooden carpet beater and gently gave it a test swing. After a practice swing, she crouched and positioned herself to swing like she would a sword. She swung the beater as hard as she could into the rug, creating a satisfying thwack sound. Aviana smiled and loosened her shoulders to deliver a more powerful blow to the rug, releasing a torrent of dust and crumbs from the rug and onto the stone floor. She continued to smack and torment the rug using every bit of her strength. Catherine was right. This was making her feel better. After a few minutes, she heard the tavern door open behind her. Aviana stiffened and stopped mid-swing, but was relieved when she turned and saw Tarek leaning against the doorframe. So, what did I do that you'll never forgive me for? Tarek asked. Aviana frowned and turned back to the rug, giving it another heavy smack. You tricked me when you had me deliver your letter. You consider that a trick? Sounds like a pitiful trick if you ask me, especially seeing as I paid you for it. You said that if I did, I would also learn something at the college, Aviana growled, continuing to beat the rug. I said that you may learn something at the college while you were there. I never promised that you would. Well, the Archmage did teach me something. He said it wasn't possible for me to be a mage, Aviana said as fury welled up inside her, her swings growing stronger. You met the Archmage? Tarek asked, lowering his voice, sounding much more serious. Aviana said nothing and continued to beat the rug harder, ignoring her tired arm's plea for a rest. Aviana, if I thought you were a mage, I would have told you. In fact, I would have accompanied you to the college myself. Then why did you choose me as your courier? So you can make a fool out of me? Aviana cried out, slamming her beater into the carpet as a whipping sound could be heard echoing echoed, threatening to break the beater. Just as she was about to deliver another blow, she felt a large hand grab her wrist. She turned and found Tarek looking down at her. Aviana dropped the beater and thrust her head into Tarek's shirt, tears running down her cheeks and onto it. The Archmage said people like me were destined to become servants, if not worse. So why did you send me there that night? Just to show me the things I'll never have? Aviana sobbed. She felt Tarek's hand gently stroke her hair in the same brotherly way that Merrick used to. Sit with me a moment, Aviana. I promise I'll tell you everything you want to know. Tarek gently assured her. The two of them took a seat in Tarek's side. I asked you because you looked like you needed hope. I didn't think you were a mage, and I certainly didn't think you were going to meet the Archmage. I did it because I thought you would enjoy it, Tarek said softly. What do you mean? Aviana asked. Very few non-mages ever get to see the campus, let alone step foot on it. When I learned you were a Civet, I just wanted to give you an opportunity even nobles don't often get. I thought that it would be an experience you would remember for the rest of your life. I just regret that memory is such a bad one, Tarek said, frowning. Aviana sniffled. Well, it was incredible before the Archmage came and interrupted your brother and I. Tarek nodded, turning towards her. How was Mikhail? Did he look healthy? He did, and he was asking all about you, wondering if you were all right. You still haven't seen him? Aviana asked. No, I left on a ship right after I met you. I'm seeing him for the first time in months tomorrow morning. Aviana nodded and went quiet. Her eyes drifted to the mage tower off in the distance. Why was the Archmage so cruel to me? I didn't know why I was there other than as an errand for you. She heard Tarek sighed. Archmage Angris Corrigan has always been like that. Not just to you, but to anyone he deems not worth his time. Even as a boy, I thought he was a shrewd and cold man. Anytime he saw a student being prayed by the other instructors, he would always tell them they still weren't good enough. Tarek held his knees tightly. When I left the college to become a skald, he told me my father would be ashamed of me, and I was unworthy of my name and power. Most importantly, though, he said that they would never get back the time they wasted on me. Aviana placed a hand on the man's shoulder. When he looked down at her, a smile graced his face, and he began chuckling. What's so funny? Aviana asked. Thinking about it, I truly believe he's the reason I went and became a skald. If a mage meant being as big of an ass to everyone around me, I just wanted no part of it. But why is he so cruel to everyone? Tarek shook his head. I don't know the answer. I have some theories, like maybe his father said the same things to him. Maybe the Archmage of the college before him did it. Personally, I just don't think he likes people, Tarek said, shrugging. Well, I hope no one was cruel to him, Aviana said softly. Really? I would have thought after your experience, that you would hate the man with every ounce of your being. I do. I think he's a terrible person, and he kind of scares me. But I don't think people deserve to be treated badly just because I don't like them. Tarek let out a laugh that echoed through the empty lot. You are truly one of a kind, Aviana. Tarek got to his feet and stretched. I better get inside and settle up with Catherine, and I'm sorry about the mess I caused, Tarek said, rubbing his hair as he turned to face the door. Aviana quickly got onto her feet. Tarek, next time you're here, can you play a song for me? I want to try dancing to it. Tarek turned back to Aviana and raised an eyebrow. Dance? Catherine is teaching me to dance at the Blue Magnolia Festival. You will be there, right? Aviana asked, rubbing her arm. Catherine's teaching you to dance. Now that's interesting, Tarek said quietly. I'll tell you what, Aviana. I'll do even better when I come back in a few months. Tarek said, becoming excited. I will personally provide the music for your practice. Tarek, thank you. Also, to make up for your experience at the college, I will personally introduce you to my father during the festival, Tarek said with a smile. You would introduce me to Attendant Pranka? Aviana asked. Call it my way of apologizing. A meeting with one of Tyrion's own attendants. That was something people would give everything they had for. It took Aviana a moment to realize Tarek was just about to walk. It took Aviana a moment to realize that Tarek was just about to walk back through the door when she called out. Then I promise I will practice very hard for when you come back, Aviana said firmly. I wouldn't expect anything less, Tarek said with a smile before walking through the door and out of sight. And that's it for this week.
Lovely.
Very nice. I like Tarek. Both versions of
Hold
him.
on one moment, please. I apologize. Give me a second.
All right.
No worries. Yeah, I like Eric, the character, and I think that the dialogue was very good. Character interaction made sense, and it's just a nice, cute little story.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice and wholesome little tale between these two characters over here. There's obviously pretty good dynamic going on over here. Let's see. As far as any plot or character criticism I have, I don't really have anything to go off of. So, well, I mean, I don't really have any on the list. It's pretty solid, actually.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Carl,
really
you
solid.
got-
No problem.
Oh, sorry. I'm too hypnotized by the chat bot here.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it's only one chatbot, and for whatever reason, I can't get rid of it.
Ah, well.
Yikes.
Probably a crypto
Well,
scheme.
anyway, some things of note over here is fucking hell. I did like the smugness. I like that Tarek is a friggin' smug asshole who knows he's hot shit and acts like it.
Art imitates life,
Also,
bitch.
I like that.
It does indeed.
Yep. I was about to say that actually.
My immediate
The
reaction
words
was,
right out of my mouth.
So
But,
this is how Tarek flirted with Becca. That makes so much sense now.
Anyways, go on, Wissia.
Yep. I wonder. Let's see. Aviana's. Yeah, she's a little girl. She is just a little girl.
She's 12, yeah.
And she is. Yeah. And she is acting the part, you know?
Hang on, she's been 12
She's
this whole
behaving as you would
time?
expect from a little girl.
Yeah, she's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Huh.
What'd you think? How old did you think she was?
I thought she was like the standard fantasy teenager.
No, she is young. She is very young. And the whole thing about that is like, and this is truly a flaw with the book on my end because I never specified that. But that's why she's written kind of. One person called her whiny, and the thing about that is he's right. The person who said that to me was right, but that's because she is a child. She is a very young child, and that's why she can come off as whiny at times.
There's also the element that little children are all kind of narcissistic. It's why narcissists are so prevalent, is that the problem with them is that they're in an arrested state of development.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I never actually personally, I never specified the fact that Rose is 21. But, you know.
Yeah, but that doesn't. I'm not trying to say that doesn't matter, but in your case, that's standard fantasy age. Like, you get what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
Unusual. I think like the youngest protagonist that I'm aware of is Stefan the Thief Lord or Inkheart.
Tarek flirts with small. What? No, you moron!
Oh my.
Somebody was not paying attention to the
You-
to the friggin' presentation.
You call that flirting? And I knew this was going to happen. I'm sure he's making a joke, but I knew this kind of thing was going to come up eventually, considering
With Catherine, not the child.
Yeah. See, this is what happens when you pay attention. You know what the person who's speaking about is referring to.
Yeah.
I just want to disclose this now, just because it's, like, I knew eventually someone would get confused about this. The relationship between Tarek and Aviana is that of like an older cousin and a little cousin, if you will. Like,
Yeah.
the whole point of the story is that these people become her new family. That is obviously the whole point of this story. These people become her new family. Silas takes the form of the dad. Catherine takes the form of the older sister / mom. And Marcel, the grandfather, his wife, the grandmother. Tarek is an oddball because he kind of plays the role of the cousin that you see every so often, but you have a good relationship with.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
My
That's-
family down to the buttons.
Yeah, it's a found family story.
Exactly.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Although I will admit, me and Becca were having a back and forth the other night about the part where Tarek gets smacked, and she said that, and we were then arguing the concepts of comedy. What did you guys think of that scene? Like, did you think it was cruel or did you think it was funny?
I thought it was relatively funny.
I mean,
like she's
Oh, it's
clearly exasperated by his flirty nature, which is funny.
I his flirty nature after destroying her shit.
Love is
That
in the
too.
air.
yeah. Let's be real. He kind of deserved it.
Oh, I am not saying
You know what's
he
the best part?
didn't.
I
Mhm.
bet. I bet that he knew that he deserved it, and that and that's why he was okay with it.
That's what I'm thinking too. Like at that point, he's at that point he's just like, okay, I kind of deserve that.
It is funny. That was
Her point was like the part afterwards, the follow up, when he's going ow ow because that woman has quite a fucking swing. She says that makes Catherine look like a bad person, or like we don't want to. Yeah, it was dour at the end.
I mean, hey, the guy friggin' took a slap to the face, shrugged it off for a bit, and then when the lady exited the room, then he's like, "Ow!"
Oh fuck!
That's just his comedy. That is how
Thank
you
you.
do it.
Well, he's Captain Jack Sparrow, don't you know?
Say what?
He's Captain Jack Sparrow.
Just
Yeah, I was gonna say like the only two people I think who could play Tarek in a movie are either Jack Black or Johnny Depp.
Probably,
A punch in the arm might be less severe. Huh. You took the wrong.
I won't lie, boys. There's trouble in paradise. There's trouble in fucking paradise.
Not really. I think she'll forgive you.
I mean, the amount of times that trouble's been in paradise for me makes me wonder if I'm even in paradise at all.
You never
Well, it
are.
could be different
You,
paradise.
you trick yourself into thinking
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
But in Tarek's case,
Yep.
it's
Nah.
actually accurate.
Yeah.
No.
I've been stuck in the meat grinder for how many years now? I'm going to put it at around 25, so my entire goddamn life.
Misrepresent me and then brag about being right.
Listen. Paradise is an island. It can still have storms.
So essentially, it'll be slap and tickle tonight rather than
I
kiss and
can't.
tickle tonight.
I'm
That
going to
was more
bed.
information
Fuck.
than I needed.
All right. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys for your help. I thank you guys for your opinions on that. I really. Yuri, did you say anything?
I
can't
didn't
remember.
get a chance to.
Oh, please
I
do.
was-
Please do.
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of it's flown out of my head, but I enjoyed the general flow that you created with the characters. There's definitely some odd tension around the middle. I should have written some stuff down. I just remember it being like something made me really tense, like personally, that was going on in the story, and I don't remember what. But it felt like it was like a tense thing, which I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm overly sleepy. That's all I got, man.
Fair enough. If you need to go to bed,
That
that's
New Year's
fine.
hangover be coming in pretty hard.
No, not at this point. I'm psyched. I did a bunch of stuff and changed up my story. I'm actually kind of psyched to get some feedback on it.
All right. Codex. I know I heard from Wissy. I heard from Carl. Codex, did you say anything?
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I like it.
All right. I just want to make sure. So everybody got their piece in.
Yep.
Yeah, before we move
Yep.
on, I just want to say it's real nice to actually have you back.
It's great to be on with
Indeed.
you again, and specifically Carl, because it's been a while since you and me have been together.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we should coordinate this, I guess.
Would be fun.
Indeed.
Different.
We'll be wearing matching outfits soon.
Everyone's favorite ship.
Yeah, she's just got a chip on her shoulder
Everyone's
because I was
favorite
right.
ship.
Come on, baby. You know you love
Oh
me.
God! I was
All right,
joking about the
Jeez.
Tarek X Carl ship, but
So, I just think right now what's going to happen is she's going like you're not. That's funny.
All right. Let's
damn
move
it,
on.
I've been
Let's move
swinging
on to
and
Yuri, though.
missing with these jokes.
All right, Yuri boy, your turn.
All right. Let's.
All right.
Let's hear it,
see.
man.
So, let's do it. Okay, yeah. So where was the window? Here it is. Yeah. So I've changed it around a bit. I don't know who's already heard like the thing by and large.
Most I've heard all of it.
You've heard all of it.
Yeah.
Of course you have. You're the host. All right. So, I guess so. I retreaded it up. Like I came up with this idea to kind of do like the 500 years under a mountain. Like kind of have like some sense of that with this. And anyway, I'll just give it a read. So I'm just as kind of like an opening sort of like summary that I have. Lightning splits the stone. Monkey comes alive. A king, a nation is made. Friends grow old and die off, and age whispers in monkey's ear. He runs seeking life. Monkey travels far, learning from brutish demons to seek a wise teacher. Rudderless journey ends. Monkey finds water, starts to say, better to serve than to rule. Great sage rebels, curses his own past, present, and future. Entrapped under a mountain, monkey's stubbornness brings him back to his teacher's side. Acceptance and enlightenment. 1. Did this begin? When? There is no timepiece to measure it. Where? How can another place than this exist? What? How? How can I just leave? Why? Is the great sage of heaven trapped below the five elements mountain, and all under heaven is grief? 2. If the results are not to your liking, change the methods. The Buddha's trickery. Already expediently he knew. 3. I cannot stop being the great sage. Can I outthink the Buddha? Where even did I begin to think? Only the Buddha would know. Yet, to escape, I'll need to defeat him. 4. Dreams of the Emperor. At the time of the Stone Monkey's birth, the Jade Emperor has already ruled the universe for more than the length of time that it would take to justify any attempt to measure it. Practically, it would be meaningless. Where does the atmosphere of Earth end? The Jade Emperor sits on a throne, thralling to the music of the spears that spin between the hands of juggling nymphs. They are acting out the birth of the universe in a way that would be very difficult to render to a mortal. These spheres show colors that humans cannot see, shades of what might be called sentience, or perhaps the elements personified. A human might look and see nothing, or a human might look and lose all grasp on those precious thin strings that are sanity. It is evening in heaven. His wrist rests on the arm of his throne, fingers holding a chalice of some precious metal gifted to him by some being, higher being or other. He does not remember, but for what it is worth, it was the Dragon King of the East Seas' sister's nephew by marriage who had gifted it, in hopes, some claim, to notoriety beyond that. It had cost him dearly. This is just another evening of the entertainment prepared for the Jade Emperor, Yu Huangdi, by the ranks and ranks of gods beneath him. He doesn't see them as either higher or lower, but according to the position that he holds, all must be treated according to the positions that they hold. It would be quite correct to say that this bores him, but it certainly holds no pleasure for him. The most beautiful nymphs with their beautiful spheres and everyone in audience has a chair assigned. Pleasure in existence is a distant memory for the Jade Emperor. It is not proper, but he brings his attention back to the chalice anyway. Some sort of sky blue jade, most rare. It is translucent like glass, even rarer. These are just thoughts like static electricity in his mind, hopping around. He feels cloudy in all of his revelry. It gets old to him. What's interesting to him is the elixir within, said to grant however many extra years of life, as though he'd not had enough tacked onto his lifespan already. The taste is something that any earthly drinker would chase in every bottle to the end of days. But it is commonplace to Yu Hong to have this kind of flavor in his life. What interests him is the heavenly brewer, Lao Tzu. That's what he realizes. The old boy, too smart to let himself get bogged down in the court and have all of these white gold chains and marks of rank, lives. He lives somewhere far away. And he only comes to court not when he must, but when he feels. When did the last Jade Emperor last see him? As this gift proclaims, he soon will. His eyes close, which really they ought not to do. according to the customs of court. And in just that moment that they close, the weather around the place, the whole palace, foments into a storm, thunder drowning out the music and the entertainment. The Jade Emperor follows his mind to the great bolt of lightning, the thunder of which breaks his tedium for a moment, something which has not happened in ages. It finds its mark on a great boulder, shattering it into the shape of a little stone monkey. And Monkey opens his eyes, and two yellow laser beams shine right back at the Emperor. Their eyes meet across the divide of space, and that articulate substance of space, and that inarticulate substance between space and time, best described as an ocean. He mentally commands the gods' thousand-mile eye and wind accompanying ear to watch this creature. He cannot mistake that this is the birth of great significance. Blood from a stone is rare, but blood from flesh. But flesh from stone. This should be interesting. The words form vaguely in his mind, and he then puts himself back to his proper position. He takes no time to consider that he may have given life to this monkey. He has seen stranger births in his tenure. He had unfocused on the procedures of his court for but a breath, but it is enough to clear his mind. He takes a sip from a goblet that Lao Tzu had sent and shows appreciation in the proper way. He has delegated the matter of the monkey, and that would be unseemly for him to give a further thought to. He has, as you would say, bigger fish to fry. His cooks do at any rate, and he must show proper appreciation to the feast now being brought out. As he eats, he experiences the lives of these fish, which we have raised in a placid rainbow lakes of the planet Venus. They are tangible in the ways that songs in their entirety might be, or curls of heat from the pavement on a hot day, or a constellation on a clear night, but lest it be unclear. This is the most of what heaven knows of monkey. 5. The first tears come, lost not to be hidden, a layer of rain. All right. Okay, so it was kind of avant-garde. What do you guys think?
It's not really
I
a
just realized
narrative, it's a soliloquy.
Well, up
I
to
just
this
realized my
point.
mic wasn't muted the whole time.
That's fine. You only made a couple of scratching sounds. I think your cat got on the desk or something for a minute.
No, I've just been painting up while I've been listening to this entire time. So I noticed that the fluidity of your presentation leaves some wanting. However, that is fine. Practice does make perfect, and you did a pretty decent job with reading out your work. As for what I actually think of its contents, this seems like just an adaptation of The Birth of Sun Wukong. Yeah, it's a bit avant-garde, but I really do feel like that you should probably just read through it a little bit a few times before presenting it, just so you can feel comfortable with saying it aloud. Because I feel like
Yeah, this
not
one I
doing
did.
so.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
more
'cause-
familiar with the others. Go ahead. Sorry.
Because it really does a disservice to what you're presenting. Because I feel like this is actually pretty good. It's we've set the scene quite succinctly. We understand who this guy is, what's going on, and everything. But yeah, as Dunn said, there really isn't a narrative going on over here.
One thing that I found was very helpful when I was still finding my voice with a presentation many years ago. You can actually it's especially if this is something you've written and you have the text document right in front of you. you can actually create a different file and change the formatting around. So instead of having paragraphs, you could just go one line at a time. And that's something that will not only just keep it much easier to keep the line steady, but also it'll let you know how big the sentence that you're working with is. So you're not going to end up.
Yeah, that I
going
was.
between
My
different-
eyes are kind of blurry too, so I'm feeling like
Then you're tired, man. Then
yeah, it's okay. It's like it's been weird the last 3 or 4 days. My eyes have been kind of blurry. I haven't been like super tired. It's just something weird's going on with my eye circulation or something. But yes, that's really good advice. Thank you, Carl. That's, yeah, I think like if I really want to like get down and memorize something, you know,
it's something that you learn from my that computer science degree
spacing
that I
out.
never got around to finishing. Different programming languages are good for different things. Some are good for really getting like the details exactly how you want to write them. Others are good for just writing stuff real quick and then moving on, and others are good for actually reading and parsing out what you have said, and are very good for editing. And so you can't be afraid to change the formatting around
yeah.
for the individual purposes.
No, with the poems I've written, like I have those all formatted like so for being spoken, and it's so much easier. Like you just made me realize it's so much easier.
One
But
more
yeah, I
ideas
think-
restroom.
But yeah, I think that I just think this. Yeah, I think my delivery could have been a lot better. And what's funny is this is the time I felt like least self-conscious about it, but it was more because I think I was like trying to put my head in a position where I could see. Like I got like floaters or something going on in my eyes.
I gotta tell you, Yuri. So you guys remember how I said we were watching Manos last night? Me and Becca. You were reminding me so much of Torgo from that movie with the way you were producing. Like it was so similar to the performance. I couldn't focus on the rest. I just kept thinking, the master would not approve. The master will beat me. Something from the movie. I'm sorry. Like the moment you started speaking, I just couldn't help myself.
The moment I started speaking in my reading,
Yeah, the moment you started speaking in the reading, the master won't approve. I want the child. That is a line from the movie.
yeah, I don't think it's a line from.
From
I wonder what triggered that, like you to think of that movie
the way you were speaking, like I guess the right word would be the cadence. The way you were spacing out the words was similar to the performance in this movie.
That's weird. So yeah, you just mean that like my cadence was off.
Yes.
Yep.
That was never really in question.
Yeah. At this point, I think that's pretty much the only thing you have to work on. It's the primary thing you have to work on. You get that
Right.
down, and everything else should follow.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of difficult to parse out the rest of it from what you're saying, but I really do like the choice of metaphors that you use. They're really, really evocative.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Well, like I
thank you.
said, the content, it's not bad. It's good.
I was tripping over myself. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I might do the same bit next week, or probably have a. I'm actually getting excited to work on a project again. It's been a while, so fingers crossed that I managed to ride the momentum and finish this one. It's like I got a lot of content as is, but anyway, yeah, it's helpful.
Oh, Becca says some of your descriptions actually scare her.
Well, that's probably the penis mountain or something from last time.
Probably, yeah.
And
Also, Trip, don't knock audiobooks. Audiobooks are awesome.
Indeed.
That's how the majority of people throughout history have consumed books, by listening to other people read them.
Freaking
I-
Homer, for God's sake.
Yeah?
Well, the Hobbits.
The
By
only
the
reason
circus.
Homer even survives is because some idiot had the idea of actually writing it down.
Fucking
Turns
Yeah.
out
dipshit.
a lot of those epic stuff are meant to be improvised.
Fucking dipshit.
Well, no, it's because the stories are true. Homer didn't make them up.
Oh yeah, totally. All that shit totally happened.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's not
yeah,
fiction, you
okay,
guys.
just
World is a real
randomly, all of a
place.
sudden, oh, randomly, we're just going to be a bunch of pond scum, and then, oh, just randomly, we're going to be humans. Oh, and just all of a sudden, stuff's not going to be here, and then, oh, all of a sudden, stuff just exists. Yeah, okay, you're smarter than me.
Indeed.
Okay.
I don't know, Lucia, what do you got for us?
All right. So, last time I was on, I presented a new section of the story that was not previously there. That being the simulated combat environment rooms. Lucia has been going through her training, and this particular instance that I presented, she's suffering some flashbacks in the middle of the training session and has something of a nervous breakdown, which prompts Malik to request that she receive some time off. And Lucia decided that she'll go ahead and just head up to his private gym and try to get her mind off of it. Malik is there in the room. He knows and there is somebody else in the room, a vanguard, specifically his bodyguard, who overhears all of this. Malik says that he will be heading to meet up with associates to discuss his campaign, while Lucia is on her own in this chamber, trying to calm her nerves. Which leads us to the first section of chapter 13 that I am going to present today, Broken Masquerade. The doors split open. Lucia's eyes adjusted to the brightness of the white chamber. Daylight broke through the expansive square windows on either side of the room, with green shrubbery at every corner and a blue padded mat at the center. Carrying her duffel bag over her shoulder, wearing her black sports bra shorts and gloves, Lucia strode into the chamber. Equipment was scattered throughout the room's peripheries, but her focus fell upon a boxing stand at the far back side. She set down her bag, staring at the padded cylinder. Her eyebrows pulled together, glaring at it now. Am I seriously about to skip warm-up? Her face contorted, a buildup of stress, pressure, and frustration. Finally, with a deep breath, Lucia blew and assumed her stance. Yes, yes, I am. She gritted her teeth and struck the stand. Lucia went through the motions, unleashing a relentless sequence of jabs, hooks, and even throwing in a kick, consistently and constantly knocking the padded cylinder back. Her eyes barely caught it, but the wrapping was beginning to wear down and even tear in some places. Then she cocked a punch back and struck it with all her might, hearing the thud of the anti-material gun, and Lucia froze. She felt the veins in her head pulsing, her heart pounding in her chest. Lucia blinked, shaking it off, and went back at it. She kept striking at it, trying for a roundhouse kick, but the second it connected, she saw Othman's head blown off by the gun. Lucia shuddered, stumbling back. Her breath slowed, becoming unstable. Yet she recomposed herself and went at it again, striking harder and faster. The sound of gunfire, the glimpses of ruin and chaos kept flashing in her head with every strike. Her pulse hastened until she could feel it in her neck. She could still hear him yelling at her before the roar of guns silenced them. A guttural rage built up in her throat, her eyes tensing as she let it out, putting her all into the next blow. Then she became staggered feeling the hole punched through her chest. Her body froze, her fist firmly pressed against the stand as sweat dripped off her. Lucia trembled, shivering, her mind gripped by the frigid claws of fear. Finally, she let her arm fall by her side and stepped back. Lucia swallowed and caught her breath, looking up, taking in her handiwork. Lucia's gaze traced down to her clenched fists, her eyes watering. Is this all I'm good for? Hurting people? She sniffed. Even when I don't want to? A swoosh echoed in the sparring hall, a sound that fell on deaf ears. Even when I'm not the one doing it. All it seems I can do is cause pain or... She blinked, seeing Tara's smile in the firing range. Her eyes watered, hearing Maria's voice again, whispering softly to her. No, I can do better than this. I ahem. Lucia jolted, her eyes darting to her right. Leaning against the exit door was a woman in an olive green uniform, bearing a single bar on her shoulders to denote lieutenant. Her short blonde hair did little to obscure her ghastly pale face or unsettling grin. Lucia shuddered, recognizing her immediately. Am I interrupting something? Jareen opened with a chuckle, leaving her in a daze. Lucia slouched and folded her arms over herself. Who, how, how did you find me? Jareen's grin widened as she walked into the room. I know some people. Overheard a conversation or two, she muttered, her tone quickly shifting to morbid. In fact, I even heard about your little meltdown today. In the SCE room? In the middle of a simulation? Jareen paused, standing a mere meter away from her. Lucia tightened her fist, the clouds looming over her even as her expression sharpened. I did not have a meltdown. Really? Then why's Malik booting you? Lucia's heart murmured. Her pupils shrunk and her thoughts turned blank, becoming static. What? Her eyes tensed and watered, her breath running short until she shook her head. He wouldn't. He told me that he was going to get me some time off, and that we'll start where we where we left off. And Jareen snickered, placing her hands on her hips. You seriously believe that? That's the bullshit they tell underperformers all the time when they're about to discharge him. Lucia shuddered, seeing the naked malice in the disgraced lieutenant's eyes. You know, I have to wonder, how much longer did you think you could keep this up? Did you think they'd ever respect you? That they'd ever take you seriously? Lucia's eyes glistened, leaking tears as her jaw jittered. No, we both know what you are. Just look at yourself. You and your fake-ass tits. You're a shari, Lucia. A whore. You always have been, and you always— Shut up! Lucia snapped. Jareen blinked, her eyes widening. Lucia's face was still streaming, contorting into a grimace, but her voice was bold and I am not stupid enough to buy your bullshit, she wept, her gaze fixated on the smirking Jareen. Malik wouldn't dare turn his back on me. Not after all he's done, all the times he stood up for me, and all the shit he put up with. Her brows pulled together as her hands clenched into a fist. And stop calling my boobs fake, you creep. Not everyone's as shallow as you. Jareen cocked an eyebrow. Ah, I see. Still want to play soldier, huh? I'm not playing, she snapped. I won't quit. I'm not quitting. There's nothing you can do or say to change that. Doreen's smile widened into a grin, sneering at Lucia as she reached for the crease of her jacket. Nothing, huh? Lucia's brows drew together as Doreen pried it off. Her eyes shot open, startled. Jareen was heavily muscled, her upper body resembling a man more than a woman, with an uncanny shine to her skin like rubber. Then she noticed the breaks in her skin, the fine print written in small patches across her form, and she pieced it together. Dios mio, she's she's a cyborg? Is that even allowed? What's wrong? Lucia shuddered, staring into Jareen's death glare. You took on a Grand Marshal and lived, right? Finding a cyborg should be nothing to you. Lucia blinked, then shouted back. I wasn't born yesterday. Even if I win, you'll just run to the nearest MP and there's cameras everywhere. I can't bullshit them. Jareen sneered at her, folding her arms. You're afraid, aren't you? Lucia snarled at her. I'm not falling for your childish schoolyard taunts. Then why are you shaking? Lucia froze and looked down at herself. Goosebumps had formed across her skin, and her body was jittering. It's because you know I'm right. Somewhere deep inside, but you won't admit it. You've already failed exactly the way I said you would, and now you're afraid of proving me right. She looked back up at her, still seeing Jareen sneering at her. Or maybe those oversized sacks of meat on you aren't all meat after all. Lucia's face tensed, her eyes leaking as she breathed erratically. Then, finally, she shook her head. Fuck off. Aren't you the one who's facing a discharge? What do I have to prove to you? Jarina wiped the smirk off her face, and her pupils shrunk. But Lucia ignored her, reaching for her bag and carrying it with her, making sure to leave at least a meter's distance between herself and the cretin. But then she felt it. A stiff, cold grip around her arm, and a hand placed firmly on her back. She shrieked, finding herself thrown to the ground suddenly and violently. Her bag slipped from her fingers as she rolled face down. You don't get to talk shit to me! Lucia groaned, looking up at the cybernetic assailant. Her face was contorted, mixed with rage and pain. I'm gonna pound you down, tenderize and rip your flesh apart. Maybe then you'll realize your place, Shari. Gritting her teeth, Lucia pushed off the ground and got back up. This bitch, the fuck's wrong with her? With a deep breath, Lucia assumed her stance, tucking her head behind her fists. Her vision narrowed on Jareen, observing her until it hit her. Lucia's head pivoted to her left, then her right, a horrendous blunt sensation accompanying the blows. She was dazed, barely registering Jareen's emotion as she went to knee her ribs. But she stopped it anyway, and threw her leg back. Then Lucia saw it, for just a moment. Jareen wore a wide grin on her face as she cocked her fist back and swung for an uppercut. Lucia instinctually moved her head back, but felt a blunt shock ripple through her. Her pupils shrunk, feeling Jareen's fist sink into her. The world had slowed to a screeching halt, her heart pounding within her as she swung back. Jareen's eyebrows shot up for just a millisecond before Lucia's fist connected with her face. A crack ruptured through the room, and small white fragments flew from Jareen's mouth as red splatter stained Lucia's torso, and Jareen dropped to the floor. She exhaled, her breath rapid and heavy. Lucia stood triumphant over her, her veins still pulsing and pumping. She skid her fingers across her cheek, not so much as feeling a bruise. Fuck, all those cybernetic implants? She didn't even leave a scratch on me. She thought to herself, her eyes darting down onto the ground. Her eyes darting to the ground, seeing Lennon's mutilated body overlap with Jareen's unmoving form. Her heart stopped, spotting the small puddle of red on the padding, and Jareen's seemingly fractured jaw. No, no, not again. Jareen? She called, seeing her cough up blood and wheeze. Lucia's heart wrenched and sank, her eyes watering as she dropped to one knee. Are, are you all right? The disgraced lieutenant's eyes darted to Lucia, tensing and leaking as she saw her. Jareen shook her head and wept. Lucia's throat jittered, tears rolling down her face as she heard her cry hideously and loudly. I'm sorry. I I didn't want to hurt you. I don't know what happened to you. I just... She paused, glancing back at the black duffel bag. Hold on. I've got a med kit on me. I'll grab it and get you patched up, and we'll call up the medics. Doreen's breathing was Doreen, breathing erratically and wearing an awful grimace, nodded. With that, Lucia shot up and rushed to her duffel bag, cracking it open and rummaging through it. Come on, I don't always keep it on me, she ranted. Just hang in there. I'll fix this. I'll make it right. Lucia found it, a white box marked with red. Smiling, she grabbed it and got back to her feet. Lucia turned around and found Jareen standing there, an arm pointed at her. She froze, her eyes wide with panic as something punched into her. Lucia stepped back, recoiling as another round found its mark. Her eyes started down, hyperventilating when she saw them. The needles, the golden, blistering hot nails that Linen had shot her with, were stuck in her again. The orange glow emanated from her veins, spreading faster this time, and their vile burning with them. Lucia groaned and trembled, dropping to one knee as she reached for them, only looking away when she heard Jareen's cackling. You sure were a stubborn one, Phoenix, like pulling teeth. Lucia blinked, looking back at her. Phoenix? What the hell is she? The hairs on her neck stuck up, spotting the knife Jareen was carrying and recognizing it. No, no, get away from me! Get away, you bitch! She struggled to her feet, grimacing as the stinging overtook her and forced her back down. Lucia wept as the burning became infernal. She watched through misty eyes as Jareen placed a foot on her chest and pushed her flat on her back, her head bouncing off the floor. Moaning, Lucia felt her head spin, almost reaching for it. Get up! She shouted at herself. She's going to kill you! Get up! She felt something press down on her arms, restraining her to the floor. She looked up, seeing the gleeful grin on Jareen's face. Lucia flexed her arms, but to no avail. Then she heard her laugh. What's with the look, Shari? I thought you said you belonged here, that you were one of us. Lucia stopped struggling, turning her attention to her would-be murderer. Have you realized it yet? Accepted it? Jareen giggled. That I was right? She viciously smirked, skidding the tip of her knife over Lucia's left eye, drawing blood. Finally understanding what you really are, she leaned in, her mouth hovering next to the trembling Lucia's ear. Worthless. Lower lip quivering and eyes streaming, Lucia nodded. Please, please, let me go. I'll leave. Quit. Just. She frowned, her voice cracking. Please don't kill me. Jareen smiled sadistically and leaned back. Oh, no, you don't get off that easy, Shari. She cut Lucia's top open and threw it open, exposing her to the biting cold. You said you wanted to stay here and play soldier, right? The grimace remained on her face, her eyes wide with the grin remained on her face, her eyes wide with excitement. Lucia felt cold sweats from around her hairline, hearing her heartbeat as she said the words, Then die like one. She drove the blade into her, forcing a shriek from her. The the sharp burning sensation of every stab ran across her chest and flooded her mind. Blood splattered and spilled from the dozens of wounds Doreen put into her, while her tormentor laughed and grinned widely. Lucia's vision had blurred, unable to make out any shapes, dulling out all other senses but the cuts. She was feeling cold, losing gut feeling in the extremities of her body. Eventually, she couldn't make a sound anymore, losing the strength to do so. But, soon enough, the pressure on her arms and body had ceased. She heard a scream and felt someone lift her up and put her on something, blood still dripping and spilling out. Panicked voices filled the room, one of them female. Her senses didn't return to her. The world darkened, the sounds muffled, and the stinging numbed until she felt none of them anymore. Whew! And we're done. Okay, so a bit rough around the edges, if I may say so myself.
I enjoyed it. It was
Yeah, I liked it.
I
Yeah, especially
Trip,
the,
to answer your question, it was Jareen stabbing Lucia. Rosa.
I like the that angst at the beginning where she's
Anyway,
working through the question of is this all I'm good for? Am I just here to hurt people? Is that all I can do? I like that.
I mean, like, she knows she's playing soldier. I would assume she would know this.
yeah. I mean, this section benefits. What was that?
That was a dog. One of the dogs.
I didn't catch that.
Sorry, those the dogs.
Well, anyway, this section really benefits.
Really benefits from what?
I didn't hear any dogs, so
Okay.
yeah, I guess we're good on that front. Yeah, so this particular chapter really benefits from the
previous ones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is your connection good?
Derek had a question, I believe.
No. I didn't have a question. I was more like, obviously, I haven't been here in a while, but I'm glad to see your fascination with the female form hasn't wavered, I guess. Constantly talking about tits and shit. This is why the Emperor never made female Space Marines.
Right now, I'm just assuming that the
anyway, I'm not
references to
staying.
the sports bra are some kind of Chekhov's gun.
I think it's Wissia just watching too much anime.
That is probably true.
And yeah,
He admits it.
I'm back. I can hear you guys. Yeah.
Do you want a dog? Okay,
Huh?
apparently they want a doggo face review.
Do
I'm
it.
not bringing my dog
Show
into my
us,
room.
show us.
Show us the dog.
Impressive Dr. Claw voice.
All right. So Trip has some commentary over here.
And I don't think it makes podcast.
So, sorry. Why do you want to slap her? Shut up, Trip. Anyway, yeah. So what were you saying? So what do you mean you wanted to smack her in this scene?
Who are you talking to?
Trip.
Okay.
Trip in the chat. Oh, because she's so. I mean, yeah, she kind of is. Huh?
At least-
I have no idea. Anyway,
The only anime I have
I was
watched...
going.
Go for it, sorry.
Anyway, I'm more than happy to take some criticisms or feedback.
Oh,
this was
yeah,
the
there was.
problem
Yeah, that
chapter.
reminds me. There's one thing. Obviously, I wasn't here for the previous chapter, but you say nervous breakdown. Are you sure it's a nervous breakdown and not a panic attack? Because there is
Those
a
are
very
two different
crucial
things.
difference between the two. Panic attacks are much more immediate but less emotional, whereas nervous breakdowns tend to be a lot more slow moving. And as
Let's
someone who has
see.
personally had both of them, I'm something of an unwilling expert on the subject.
So she actually suffers both. A panic attack in the middle of the combat simulation, and then a nervous breakdown after the fact because she got everybody killed. Again.
I see.
Great performance record, I have to say. It's a wonder she's on her way out to being discharged.
She working for those achievements.
She isn't actually. That was a lie. She's nowhere even remotely close to being dishonorably discharged because the freaking military looks at her and they immediately think, okay, this woman is a walking weapon of mass destruction. We need to make sure that she is safe to handle, and we also want to make certain that we can train her to be useful in any upcoming conflicts. So we're going to go ahead and kick her over to this guy over here and have him take care of it. But of course, we're going to be, watching over her like a freaking hawk. So, no, she's not getting booted out anytime soon.
Well, spoilers. Now I have no reason to read.
Hmm. Hey, just because you know what's coming doesn't mean the story isn't good.
I never said it wasn't. Now it's sort of like I've lost all interest. He's spoiled the entire thing.
I haven't spoiled the entire thing, actually.
Mhm.
Well, hurting the bitch is kind of connected to losing control. It's more a matter of how much she hurt her.
Hell, was the cyborg even programmed to feel pain? What's she even care about?
That's actually a good question.
Yeah.
There's got to be a factory reset button on that thing somewhere.
That was a human being a few weeks ago.
Hmm.
Like
What
a
happens-
completely normal human being.
What happens when you factory reset a cyborg, anyways? I kind of want to know.
It goes to
now,
Spanish
like-
mode.
I'm not sure, actually.
It goes to Spanish mode.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
Is
get
that
like
what you
Buzz.
call it?
I get it.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I
I have never said this to anyone, Dunn, but don't do that. You're way too white.
Oh.
yeah.
Oh,
Lucia.
hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué bien?
Slow
Okay,
down there,
so
Speedy Gonzalez.
I want to hear from Tarek in detail any criticisms that he has of this, because I understand that this was a bit choppy.
The biggest criticism I have for you is, well, it's not a criticism, more that, like, obviously I haven't been here in a while. So I haven't been keeping up, obviously.
Sure.
But the moment you start talking about her tits, and I've explained this before, I get it. They're wonderful. They're terrific things on a woman. I completely understand. But
Well, the
it's
point
just-
is that
Go on.
the point is they're making fun of her for it.
I, according to Becca, that's a real thing, which I didn't know. But as a male reader, I just find it distracting. So distracting. Because
Okay,
tits.
so
Literally, because tits.
all right, so I'll just go ahead and make that adjustment. It's
You
a good
don't
thing
have to
there's
make
one-
any adjustments on my behalf. I'm just saying, for me. God damn it. the best way I can describe
Bravo,
what
Becca.
you're doing, Wissia, the best way I can describe what you're doing it feels like if you were to tell Michael Bay to direct some kind of sci-fi story and gave him a competent writer. It's like, except you still have the gratuitous moments. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that's just me. That's just how I happen to be viewing this.
All right. Anybody else? Any other commentary?
I was gonna say I really enjoyed the like the pacing of it. Like you did manage to like hit this very tense like set of like it's like even if I tuned out for a minute, I was still like in it, and there was like this constant on the move kind of feel that you were able to make. And like let's see, yeah, that'd be my main feedback.
Mm-hmm.
The dial, no wonder she needs a good sponsor. That's funny.
Okay. So
I can't help but be reminded of that video of the guy reading every single instance of Robert Jordan's use of the word bosom in the Wheel of Time series.
Isn't the video like over like 3? Isn't it? Does he spend like 3 hours on that or something?
I was gonna say it's over
so
50
The whole
minutes.
series.
all right. So let's see. What do we think of Rosa's character over here, though?
As I said before, I do like the existential, the bit there, that sort of self-reflection. That is this the only thing I'm good for? That's very good. I'd dig a lot more into that.
All right.
That could be a very rich source of angst.
All right.
That's all now
Awesome.
angst sells.
anyone else have anything to say?
I have a genuine question. Wasn't she
Yes.
raised and bred to be a soldier?
Rosa?
Yeah.
No, she was not.
Okay. I know you've explained the premise of this before, but for some reason I thought she was like a genetic experiment or something.
Oh no, that's the Grand Marshals. They are the genetic experiments.
Oh, I thought she
however,
was too.
So, okay. No, she, however, is just incredibly powerful and has memories of being in combat zones before. That's it.
Mary Sue, got it.
What?
I'm kidding. Oh my god, I'm fucking with you.
Yeah, I know. So,
that what was genuine. Like, excuse me?
like, I'm sorry. It took my brain a second to register it. I'm like, bro just heard me reciting out a chapter where her character flaws are being exploited by some jackass, and she's nearly murdered, and he's whole ass saying with his full chest that, yes, she's a Mary Sue. Got it.
Got it. Mary Sue, whatever.
Codex?
Oh boy. Codex,
Yeah.
please save us from this.
I'll try to, but
I was asking for his opinion.
Oh.
I was asking
Oh.
for his opinion on it because I haven't heard him yet.
I think really solid, all things considered.
I think the only thing was
what?
like Rosa wouldn't cry. Doesn't seem like she would cry. That doesn't seem like that was a character. I think her reaction would be shock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Happy,
guess
would
that.
be, but crying, no.
Well, yeah, but the thing I was trying to invoke over here is that she was kind of horrified the last time she hit someone that hard. So I was trying to invoke invoke that emotion again and try to take advantage of it, I guess, for lack of better words.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I heard.
Wow.
Tarek, is there anything you wanted to tell me right now? Is there something you need to say?
I do not know where all this slander and conjecture is coming from. I have no idea. I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but I take great pains to avoid mostly anything sexual within my work. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed that, because it makes me very uncomfortable, honestly. And I have no idea where these implications are coming from.
Yeah,
I don't know. Sorry.
good on you. I'm trying to straddle a line over here.
Straddle a line? Dude!
Yeah, I said trying. I didn't say I
You're
was successful.
failing miserably.
I
Oh my
didn't
God.
say I was successful. I said I was trying to straddle a line.
Yeah, you're trying to straddle something, all right.
I love this show.
I think we better move on to Codex or Carl or someone else.
Yes,
Come
please.
on.
Okay. I mean, I'll try and bring some sanity into
I
this
do.
whole thing.
Thank you.
Do
I need a
please.
silence
I'll
video
try.
too.
All right. So the last time I was on here, I showcased the beginning parts of my second chapter of my book, Saga of Fire, as it's called. And what I'm trying to do here exactly is basically try to make a flow of time, essentially, like obey the, Father Time, the rule of Father Time, essentially. How my prologue, this whole series I'm doing, and the beginning parts of Saga of Fire are finally going to pay off, essentially. So hopefully this works. So I shall begin. 4 years. The steadfast captains have been discussing and dating plans for the future of Malta, the village of fire. For the many long days and nights within one of the high chambers of its engraved fortress, molded by the black stone sustaining its indomitable frame. With an influx of marble slabs with sightings of beasts, and the recent reports of the comings and goings of warriors scattered around the stone map, marking their posts. The most recent reports were the sightings of their elder heading toward the watchtower. Each captain proposed plans for future attacks from the shadows rough. Moving banners of sorry, I do apologize. Moving stone figures on the outlines of their territory's borders on a map, carved from the same hardened marble detailing their part of the island. We could place more traps along the ridgeline to the east. There are more sightings of the regime lately. They've been more aggressive than usual, said the captain of the Six. But if we do that, we run the risk of losing more men and wasting more of our dwindling supplies. And besides, we place more than already from here all the way to the borders of Galwayhan, said Paya II. The first captain, Yelmore, hang back, watching them, waiting both captain's arguments as his golden mask glittered underneath the remaining embers of torchlight. Until Talmor, the captain of the fourth, added his voice to the din of verbal battle. Then in that case, we could ask for assistance from the other tribes, rekindle our ties with them. Yao finally stepped in. It was a moment to hit him. The other tribes are in a very similar position as we are, with dwindling supplies, attacks on all sides, and few few men to handle even the most simplest task of their villages. And to add to that, we have lost communications with Gohi for some time now. Who knows what have happened to them? He said, placing down a slab on the map detailing the report only given to him a day ago. So we need to focus on ourselves at the moment. Empire. We already have set up. Once we study ourselves and resupply ourselves, then we can. His plan was cut short. A horn blew a faint but unmistakable cry of alarm, roaring like a thunderclap, cut through them. That's on the north side, Pato interjected. Impossible. The machine must have come from must have found away from the beach, said the captain of the fourth. Yamo's eyes wander at Pata's words, trying to find the slabs of the data from the centuries. Elder Valkyr must have in that way. Gather our men and bring them to the edge of the Ashen Forest. We're coming off from there. Go! As they rushed out of Mortala, agreed that Yama and three others would take 2 companies to rescue Valkymer. While the third captain had been assigned to guard and muster a defense, Yamo's companies were armed with swords and boarded spears, shields, and bows as they rushed out towards the ashen wasteland. Yamo heard the snapping of twigs carried by the moaning winds towards them. Yamo and his chosen ones took cover behind a pale, toppled tree. 10 men at his back, his hand gripped on the pommel of his sword to focus a moment. The other two captains took 30 warriors each to each flank. It's each flank, sorry, I apologize, waving flags to signal their position. Yamo willed the creature to peer out from the clearing. Show yourself, monster. Show us what you... A close explosion boomed behind him. He turned to where the blast came from, but saw one of his warriors burst a fire cloud, culprit covering his mouth. It was Yamo. It was your moon. The village fooled some. Many had titled him. Sorry, give me lava rocks this morning. The scorn of his comrades matter. Quiet down, all of you. Stay focused, Yamo ordered. As he returned his watch to the clearing, Yamo saw a crimson outline of something many times Yamo's height. It moved towards them. It soared array up, looking around, not knowing they were there. Now! As the captain commanded, both flanks drew themselves up and fired arrows at the crimson creature. Most of them bounced off its ruby armor. Still, one found mark and struck it on its black blood-red mask, causing it to stumble, forcing one of its legs to pull on a strand of rope buried under the black ash, triggering one of the traps. Jagged sticks jetted of the blackened soil, surrounding the man, forming a jagged wooden cage around it. Rejoicing that their plan would work, a joyous cry was on their lips. Only for the Crimson Man's sword to erupt into a burning flame, slashing the wooden cage cell. It sank and stared at them with its eyes, fire blazing with them in anger. Stung, the warriors looked to the first captain, who began to stomp his feet, and as they all did so, turning into a rhythmic beat. Then, finally, shouted their people's war cry. For Mortala, the Great Spirit! Emboldened, the warriors charged into battle, spears and swords in hand. And they were mere children, brave children, he had to be said. He raised his sword. He raising
breaking up really bad.
Raising the. Oh really? Sorry about that. raising the roaring sword to strike the 17 warriors down. Cease, bellowed Volkamer, halting both the man and the warrior, making his way behind the Crimson Man. The mechanical man looked ponderously at this strange robed figure walking towards him, his sword still roaring the living fire within its ruby edge. "What are you doing?" warned Yarmor. Volkamer ignored his plea and continued to walk toward, stopping only a foot before him, meeting his wise gaze upon the man's baleful stare. Then, to their surprise, Volkamer bowed to Volkamer bowed towards the mechanical man and bellowed to the high heavens. "Brothers, destiny has come to pass." That's about it.
So I got some of it, but not all of it, since there's some static interference.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry about that.
I barely got any of it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, what I did hear of it sounded like interesting. But, yeah.
Yeah, sounds
Well,
good.
That's that, I guess.
All right, Carl, it is your turn, I believe.
All right.
Yes, that's me then. So, as I don't know how many of you were, how long it's been exactly, a month or two, but so the last time I split up the a super long chapter into 2 parts, and I still hadn't finished it. So I compromised. I wrote a really short chapter, probably the only one that I've written in a long time that was under 2,000 words. And I tacked on the very last tail end of the previous chapter to it. So this is the end of chapter 22, The Woman in the Catacombs, and chapter 23, Season of Rain. We continue as Shenna is trying to figure out how to put energy back into her little friend, the zombie crow Athanasius. She continues. She picked up the crystal with her free hand, set down the glass moon, and raised her finger to begin the infusion. 1/8 charge. That should be enough for the moment. She hesitated. She'd only done this once before, and without any idea of what she'd been doing at the time. What if there was some part of this process she was forgetting? Or what if she used too much power? Would that harm Athanasius? So many possible ways she might fail. Well, if she didn't try at all, then she may as well already have failed. Shenna touched her finger to Athanasius and began the transfer. The very moment Shenna broke off the connection, Ath bounced up off the desk. His fiery little violet eye was again blazing with magical energy, brighter than it had ever been before. Shenna fumbled for her glass moon to find the bird happily hopping wildly about the desk, his tail feathers fluttering up and down like a dog wagging its tail. He looked up at her and hopped onto her shoulder and began happily nibbling at her hair, possibly trying to groom her and wondering why her feathers were so strange. Shenna giggled at the sensation, her heart overflowing with so much joy that she barely noticed the red light slowly filling up the chamber as the braziers came to life. What is that? Shenna started at the disturbance, and turned to see Lysandra standing in the doorway. The red light illuminated a face painted thick with shock and horror, like one who had just come face to face with some terrifying monster on a dark night. Slowly, a trembling hand came up to point at the bird on Shenna's shoulder. Lysandra stammered. Is that thing yours? Oh! Shenna lifted Ath up off her shoulder and tucked him into the crook of her arm. She got up from her seat. This is Athanasius. I met him a few months ago, just before I arrived in Acre, in fact. and we've been close friends ever since. Its face is, Lysandra whispered, raising her hand to her own face. What happened to it? Well, I don't know, Shenna said. I found him like this. Well, not exactly like this, but I revived him. Rather, I infused him, I should say. That's the technical term. He's a construct, an undead construct. Is it safe? Oh, certainly, Shenna said. Unless you're wearing any feathers, that is. He doesn't like people doing that. Other than that, he's very well-mannered. Would you like to meet him? No! Lysandra jumped back at the offer. No, thank you. It's just, I'm rather tired from everything today, and I was hoping to get an early evening. Lysandra began to shuffle awkwardly in the direction of her bed. I'm sure it's quite well, I'm going to sleep. Yes, I understand, Shenna nodded, setting Ath back down on the trunk beside her desk and gathering up her papers to continue the assignment from Magistress Karna. You can put out the lights when you need to. I'm fine with working in the dark. Okay, then. Shenna slowly settled back into the rhythm of her work, barely pausing to switch over to her glass moon as the braziers went out again. She tried not to be too offended by Lysandra's reaction. Undead constructs like Ath were still a fairly uncommon sight. It was only natural that Lysandra should be a little put off by the notion at first. She could hardly be blamed for ignorance, any more than an infant could be blamed for soiling its linens. She would just have to learn the error of her ways soon enough. That was, after all, the purpose of the Magisterium. Are you going to bed soon? Lysandra asked in the darkness. Shenna jumped at the sudden noise. I don't think so, Shenna said. I still have quite a bit to get through. Okay. Shenna continued working for a few more minutes until the creeping awareness of the girl across the room compelled her to stop and go to bed. The sound of her pen scratching away in the darkness had to be unsettling, rather like how Shenna had felt when listening to the sound of the woman in the catacombs. Chapter 23, Season of Rain. Shenna couldn't remember the last time she had been awoken by Athanasius. Her energy infusion the night before had clearly worked marvels. Ath was practically dancing as he touched down atop Shenna's sleeping form. He hopped merrily over to her pillow and placed a small brass button on the mattress beside her. Thank you, Ath, Shenna said, giving the bird a scratch on the feathered side of his head. Now that songberry season was long past, it seemed that Ath had moved on to small, shiny things. Still, gifts were gifts, and Shenna delicately picked up the button, letting morning light slide across its gleaming surface. With his present delivered, Ath took to wing again and soared out of the window. No doubt he had a good deal to catch up on. There were still plenty of hats that urgently needed their feathers pulled out. As Shenna rose from her bed to dress, she noticed Lysandra staring out through a hole in her bedsheets, as though warding away the chill of winter, or protecting herself against a half-dead crow, Shenna surmised. Well, it could always be worse. At least she wasn't screaming like Elira had done. You can come out now, Shenna said, trying not to sound offended by Lysandra's reaction. He doesn't usually come back until nighttime. Lysandra nodded and wordlessly emerged from her protective cocoon to dress. Did you sleep well? Shenna asked, more to keep away the silence than anything else. Yes, of course, Lysandra said quickly. Shenna frowned. Even a deaf woman could hear the lie in that answer. I understand it can take a little time to get used to his appearance, but Athanasius is very kind once you get to know him, Shenna said. Well, what about you? Did you keep any pets back in Longbridge? Farbridge, Lysandra corrected. And no, Mother and Father never allowed me any pets. Shenna continued trying to coax Lysandra into a conversation as they descended the stairs to the refectory, but to little avail. Once they reached the bottom, Lysandra quickly slipped away at once to fetch breakfast. and Shenna was forced to set her efforts aside for the moment. "Shenna, darling!" exclaimed a voice like a set of expensive wind chimes. Shenna looked up in the direction of the voice. "Hello, Elira." "Wonderful to see you again," Elira said, delicately holding a piece of flatbread in her fingers as though it were a lady's fan. Her vibrant blue dress swished delicately to and fro as she stood. Shenna suspected that Elira practiced that technique in a looking glass every night before bed. "I do hope you enjoyed yourself during the course break. You simply must tell me all about it." She appeared to have completely forgotten her last conversation with Shenna, the one where she had threatened to pull out Ath's feathers for ruining her dress. "Shouldn't you be in your robes by now?" Shenna asked, making her way to the porridge vats for a glop of breakfast. "Oh, there'll be a time enough to change into those dreary robes before lessons begin." Elira brushed the suggestion aside. "But I see that you've made yourself a new friend. Oh, how splendid. You simply must introduce us." "Lysandra?" Shenna looked about the refectory and found Lysandra seated alone directly behind a column, as though trying to hide herself away. Not much of a friend, really, Shenna reckoned sadly. But then Elira wouldn't leave her alone until she obliged. "All right, then. Follow me." Shenna led Elira across the refectory to where Lysandra had stowed herself. "This is Lysandra," Shenna announced before the girl could get up and move away again. "She's my new roommate for the cycle. Lysandra, may I introduce—" Elira stepped forward without waiting for Shenna to complete her introduction. "I have the pleasure to be Elira El Shondaval, 4 Jewels of Liren and Clef. Shenna has already told me so much about you. It is a delight to meet you, I'm sure." All at once, Lysandra's eyes lit up. She jumped to her feet and made a strange gesture, something like a bow, but with the addition of spreading out her robes to the side with both hands. "It is a blessing to stand in your presence, Lady 4 Jewels," Lysandra said. The effect on Elira was immediate. "Oh, bless you, you darling little creature. Oh, I know the Magisters are always blathering on about how all are equal within these walls and nonsense of that sort, but it is just so refreshing to meet someone who understands and appreciates the delicate art of social precedence." "Sure," Shenna nodded, barely managing to suppress a shudder. She might not understand the complete meaning of the gesture, but she knew bootlicking when she saw it. Her opinion of Lysandra, already on poor foundations, was rapidly plunging to new depths. "Oh, I simply must introduce you to my fiancé," Elira said, waving across the refectory towards Gareth, who had just wandered in for breakfast. As he lazily made his way over to them, Elira continued, "This handsome young man is Gareth and Casavan, Bright Banner of Teshin and Havar, and we are to be betrothed. Is that not so wonderful?" "It is a blessing to stand in your presence, Master Bright Banner," Lysandra said, repeating that humiliating gesture towards Gareth. "Huh?" Gareth blinked, almost as though he hadn't noticed the girl standing before him. "Oh, hi, I'm Gareth. Nice to meet you. Listen, Elira, have you seen Talene? She was gonna meet me this morning. Shenna slipped away from the conversation without hearing much else. Lysandra was being frustrating enough. Adding Gareth to the mix might be just enough to make Shenna punch someone. Fortunately, Shenna's first lesson of the day managed to settle her mood. Magister Rennick was teaching a course on advanced mathematical principles with a particular focus on statistics and analysis. Unlike Magister Forlek, who had generally been content to consider numbers in their abstract forms, Rennick always made a clear, certain effort to relate each principle back to the real world and point out their many practical applications. Shenna had little difficulty following the lessons and eagerly volunteered answers during class discussions. At least when the questions didn't concern money. She left those for Kieran. Shenna's next course, a discussion of the history of Accra and the surrounding provinces, proved altogether more difficult. Magister Parnulf was as uninspiring as he had ever been, but that was the least of the problems. Shenna had barely any context for anything that was being discussed. She wasn't familiar with any of the nearby settlements or regions. She had no notion of which major historical personages or movements were what or their significance. She hadn't even had the time to look at a map. By the time the course broke for lunch, Shenna found herself sorely wishing that she had actually managed to read a little ways into the comprehensive history of the free city of Acre during her break. After lunch, Shenna spent the rest of the day down in the catacombs with Magistress Karna. Fortunately, Karna didn't have a cadaver to experiment on this time. Book learning was to be the order of the day. Karna spent hours going over the different signs and sigils and their many purposes and how those purposes all joined together in service of some grand design. She also quizzed Shenna on the material of the previous lesson to see how much of it she recalled. Shenna answered each question without fail, but there was little praise from Karna either way. Even when Shenna mentioned that she had decided to bring a sense of order to her copy of Karna's notes, the Magistress simply shrugged and said, "Probably a good idea. Let me know how that works out." It was raining when Shenna emerged from the catacombs to get dinner that evening. Raining for the first time since she had arrived in Acre. Lysandra was nowhere to be found in the refectory, so Shenna glumly returned to her chamber to work on transcribing the day's notes over a light dinner. As before, Shenna worked long into the night, occasionally stealing glances at Athanasius joyfully splashing about in a puddle on the windowsill. He had never seen rain before, at least not that Shenna could recall. She picked up her pace considerably after Lysandra slipped into the chamber and quickly went to bed without a word. But by the time Shenna herself went to bed, there remained quite a bit of work to be done. It was still raining the next morning, and once again Lysandra evaded all attempts at conversation on the way down to breakfast. Shenna began to suspect that the chase was no longer worth her effort. Slowly, the rhythm of days began to take shape. Mathematics and statistics remained as delightful and engaging as ever. History steadily became more and more confounding as Magister Parnolf lumbered from one subject to the next without leaving the slightest scrap of context to follow. Shenna's lessons with Karna moved on to practical matters, with Karna bringing more fresh cadavers to Shenna to test her skills upon. Within a few weeks, Shenna went from designing simple constructs to exhibit basic principles to replacing Karna's old constructs with new ones. Shenna's discomfort at working with dead bodies was a long time in breaking, but she managed to force it aside long enough at least to work. Magistress Karna was far from sympathetic in that regard, and her constant opining that Shenna would come to her senses in time served only to make her even more self-conscious. It fell to Shenna to simply rationalize the business for her own sake. Death was tragic and all living creatures knew to avoid it on principle, but it was not evil in itself. It was merely a natural process that all living creatures must eventually suffer. Indeed, in some ways, death was essential. If people never died, then there would be no room for new children to be born. If plants never died, then crops couldn't be harvested or trees felled for timber or firewood. If animals never died, then they couldn't be hunted or butchered for their hides and meat. Though it was probably better not to dwell on that particular thought. Still, as long as a dead body was already there, well, what could be the harm in getting a little more work out of it in the meanwhile? And besides, it wasn't as though Shenna had killed them herself. Meanwhile, the rain continued, uninterrupted for days at a time. Sometimes it came down in heavy, thick sheets, while other times it shrank to a feeble drizzle. Gusts of wind and mighty thunderheads each took turns making their presence felt, while blue sky and the lazy autumn sun were hardly to be seen at all behind the iron-gray curtain of clouds. Autumn in Acre, so it seemed, was the season of rain. And we shall leave it there.
So, legitimate question: is necromancy just a accepted form school of magic? Like, no one's, like saying this is a crime against nature.
It actually, this was actually something I sort of hinted at in an earlier chapter, that it's
Right.
Karna is basically has basically devoted her entire life to this, but most of the fellow magisters have basically gotten the idea that this is sort of a scientific dead end. That this is just esoteric for its own sake. And Karna
just
has really been struggling to actually get this recognized as a legitimate science. So this is sort of on the cusp of necromancy becoming a legitimate science.
okay.
And basically, Shenna is going to have quite a bit of say in some of the things that later go on to be core principles of it. And it's sort of going to, I'm showing my computer science background, but it's basically going to end up being like programming and robotics.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I am just so used to necromancy bad. You know what I mean?
And I mean, there is very much that attitude. Lysandra, is basically
Very uncomfortable.
a dead creature that is in love with this girl.
Right.
I've listened whenever I describe the story. Part of my elevator pitch is, about Shenna finding her way in a world that I'm very proud of this particular line. A world that needs her, and hates that it needs her.
That is a good line. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Sorry, what?
That is a very good line.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of thing.
I missed it.
The world hates
I-
her, needs her, and hates that they need her.
Yeah.
Right?
That's, just sounds like Buffy.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen Buffy. I don't know how.
Your voice is really they definitely give me flashbacks to it. Like your voice works incredible, man. It's really amazing.
Thank you. very much.
Kind of does sound a bit
Honestly-
like Giles when you read.
Yeah, like a
Also-
young Giles that's like into
Yeah.
the kind of stuff this main character's into, which is like it's creepy. Like just the character itself, its jovialness and its conviviality, it makes it creepier. It's like he's out hunting for humans, right? Like, isn't that what's going on?
Honestly, when a rich lady walked in and started speaking, I immediately wanted to punch her in the face.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
such
Mhm.
an aggressively and overbearing voice. I cannot stand it.
Yeah, Elira is she is a jewel, and a jewel so polished that her edges can cut.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
better than anything that Buffy guy ever came up with.
Giles is. But we know it's just relative. The cadence and tone is very similar.
Indeed.
Well, not to worry. I've always been very good at doing accents. I think. I believe that's part of my Discord handle. Someone who can actually do accents.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
I know.
It's not my fault. I was raised on British comedy. My uncle is Welsh, and he gave me a large stack of DVDs of just British humor from the.
I'm
70s.
surprised they worked.
Oh yes, the good stuff really, not just Monty Python. I mean Blackadder, The Secret Policeman's Ball.
Oh,
Not so much Father Ted. Father Ted is sort of an Irish sort of thing, but it sort of it helps a bit. But yes, it is mostly a matter of exposure and just impersonating the things to which one is exposed.
Spent a month on that godforsaken island.
Oh, and you haven't picked up any British accent at all?
Couldn't even understand them half the time.
Oh, jeez,
I know.
bro.
This is. Hold hold on. This is the ultimate irony, though. We went to Stratford, where Shakespeare was born. Becca took me on an amazing trip to where Shakespeare, to the town Shakespeare was born. It turns out that the American lexicon is actually closer to Shakespeare's than the modern day British. That tickled me
Fucking-
more than you will ever know.
Oh yeah,
Fucking
original
yikes.
pronunciation of early modern English. I just got finished shooting a movie. Well, I mean, I was in the movie. That was all spoken in early modern English, original pronunciation. It was real.
Oh, shit.
Fun. Yeah. With Atun Shea Films too. With whom I
Oh
went to
shit!
school.
Nice.
Yeah, I went to high school with that guy. We used to shoot movies in the woods behind his parents' house.
Nice.
Holy fucking shit, man!
He has
That's
killed
a
me
win.
in every single project he has ever done. He killed me 4 times in one battle scene. I am this kid's personal Sean Bean.
Oh my god.
I wouldn't be surprised if he
Uh.
writes that into my contract for the next thing we do.
Nice.
Oh my god. Yeah, I watch Anton Shea's films, like particularly his Checkmate to Lincoln Knights video series. I really like going through all of the bullshit that was made up and watching him methodically dismantling it.
It's particularly for me because I remember him when he was in high school when he was actually going through it was about states' rights phase.
Oh.
Yeah. So actually having seen him, come full circle on this is
Holy shit.
really inspiring. Actually.
Usually-
He's doing this now. He's released videos updating his opinions on that thing he did with Brandon F about inaccuracy in movies. He just recently released a video, an update to his video on King Philip's War. I mean, this kid, he really goes the extra mile. It is inspiring to see.
And
This kid
I
has-
commend him for it.
So who
I have
is he?
learned so much from watching his content.
Ooh,
Who?
Anton Shea Films.
Untuned Shea Film.
He's a YouTuber. He does things like early American history. A lot of it is focused on the American Civil War because that's like a hot button topic. But as Carl
Do you have
says, he also does-
interesting or derivative opinions on it?
Interesting.
Well, that's
interesting.
good. Yeah, okay. Because
Mm-hmm.
derivative, I'm very like, it obviously it wasn't about states' rights. It was about moving from a chattel to a wage class of slavery. Obviously, I don't know.
That actually doesn't sound half inaccurate.
Yeah,
I didn't think you were a communist.
Me? No,
Yeah.
dude.
Wage slavery, huh?
I mean, it's what it is. Like they're paying a wage, right? And instead of so it used to be that they take care of all of the needs and then they probably got a little extra, right? Like here and there. Like maybe not. Maybe it's like deprivation to like, oh, I'm raising up these slaves for God. Like that's the the spectrum.
Yeah, that's the lie they told themselves to make themselves feel better about exploiting free labor.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
regardless,
yeah, there's-
the current situation, homelessness, just living in a hellhole where it's like guns going off all the time, everybody's on drugs all the time and geeked out. It's like that life versus something where like you're around your family and you're just singing songs all day.
Well, I mean, family is the
Careful,
wrong
Yuri, you're
thing.
starting to sound
Families
like a-
were regularly broken up.
Regularly broken up, but like I still imagine it was fewer families were broken.
Yeah,
the whole-
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, though.
Spoken like someone who's never had to suffer through that.
Have you?
Okay, we're getting
Have
off
you?
topic.
Yeah, we are off topic.
Yuri,
Let's move on.
And
This is
I
irrelevant.
feel like I crossed some line by accident. I was just mostly making absurd statements.
We understood that very
Okay.
clearly.
Right.
Codex, unfortunately, we don't really have time for you and me to read since I have I have to.
Well, that's fine. I
watch
can try again
Godzilla
some other
from
time.
Wars. Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, I was.
That's
gonna,
fine.
I was
I
gonna
do
offer to
apologize.
read it. I would want to
No, it's
I sent you.
yeah, it's
but I
fine.
should DM
I'll
you.
just post it on the Discord server, or I'll try again some other time.
All right.
Again, I do apologize for that.
No,
I already know I've
Admit it. It's
I
not
mean-
your fault.
I know
Should've
I've already
said
made
something.
I already know I've made like a singular revision to what I just presented today. It took like less than 5 seconds. So yeah. Anyway, hopefully everything works out better next time, I guess.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yes.
All right.
Alright. Happy New Year's, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
We're not
Happy New Year.
finished. We're not
Oh,
finished.
we're not
yet.
finished?
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely failed to read the room over
I-
there. My bad.
I said sorry, Coach. We don't have time for you and me to read. I'll just put it on
Oh, okay.
next
Sorry.
week.
My apologies.
No problem. Yeah, we'll just make sure that you have less technical. We'll just tell you quicker when technical issues happen.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Let me see. Alrighty. So what's happened so far in the second Dragonstrife? Basically, the queen is dying of deterioration of her health, and has decided to let the nobility choose who will be the ruler. And one of her son is not terribly interested, but he thinks that and mostly because he thinks that his sister is probably psychopathic, and he's running anyway, despite the fact that he's of the concern that if he does try, he will get murdered along with his children. So that's a concern that he has. Meanwhile, a man by the name of Shard Dragonless is trying to engineer the psychopathic sister being put on the throne because he believes he can aim her at any targets he wants. So he's scheming and finagling and putting things together to make it so that he's going to be able to put that into place. So and we're picking up with him in this chapter. Shard, Chapter 6, Spending Wells. Shard tried desperately to work out a deal with Hamlon, the Lord of Numenor, but all of his attempts were futile. If I could get his vote, then I'd have the majority I need without Matriana. My lord is very unfortunately busy. Busy, my Lord Shard, the servant said. The steward reported after being sent to try and secure a meeting. He did send a message, though. He proffered a small sealed letter. Not terribly optimistic about the contents of the letter. Shard broke the tower and star seal and opened the letter. Lord Shard, I understand that you have been meeting with several lords and ladies, especially of the great families, in order to secure votes for Chimera as Dragonlord. I mean to vote according to my own preferences, without any meddling from you or anyone else. You'll discover my vote on the day that the Dragonlord is chosen. Thank you. Shard motioned the starter to leave before placing the tip of the letter in a nearby candle. Disappointing, he murmured as the flames got closer to his gloved fingers. So he's a possible aberration, possible variable. Our plan is set, then victory is secure, but if the victory isn't decisive, well, then my plans are upended. Calmly, he dropped the burning letter into a tray prepared for the purpose before the flames could reach the leather of his gloves. The current positioning is 4-2, with one undeclared. A clear victory would be 5-2, but that won't happen. If Ulbar, Numenor, and Slatharis band together in an attempt to get their candidate on the throne, then the issue of succession will drag the kingdom into a long, crippling war. At this moment, we are strong in terms of our finances. A war would quickly drain those resources into military campaigns, and the destruction that result from dragons burning swathes of countryside would be significant. Dusting off his hands, Shard walked over to the window and gazed out over the wide expanse of the kingdom. He allowed himself a moment to picture all that was inside the kingdom. Wealth, armies, land, castles. He smiled and placed his hand on the stone as he leaned against the side of the window. Such prosperity could not be allowed to be squandered. This was a critical juncture, and any upset could ensure that all his work would be rendered useless. If it must be that I must trade this one thing to ensure victory, then so be it. He realized he'd clenched his hand, then forced himself to relax. I will do what I must. A sudden knock on the door made his hackles rise, but when the pattern the he'd agreed on with Perion was pounded on the door, Shard could let himself untense. Come in. He picked up Arc Fate from where it rested against the table and put it around his waist. Gait graceful but not overly showy, Perion slid into the room and closed the door behind her. So, have you thought about how we're going to handle the Matriana situation? Incessantly, Shard folded his arms and met her gaze. His flat tone and clearly irritated posture pleased her, surprisingly. Smirking, Perion walked over to him and put her arms around his waist. May I be so bold as to say I'm pleased to how you're clearly uninterested in doing this? You're clearly far too amused at this. Shard put his hands on her shoulders and pushed her out to arm's length. I'm somewhat unwilling to bend my rules because you want to, and because we need her vote. She wouldn't have been interested without the sweetener. Perion patted his shoulder. I know you're mine, and that doesn't bother me, especially since it's one time. If she ever reveals this, or threatens to reveal this, I will kill her, Shard said coldly. Don't be so drastic. Perion smiled and laced her fingers into his so she could pull him to the desk. Come on, this could be fun. Let's discuss how best to go about this. Disguises and an inn will be needed. Shard had suspected that he would need to be prepared for this eventuality, so he just constructed at least a base plan already. He reached down and picked up the map he'd secured from the library. There are a few options that might work, such as this particular inn on the edge of the city. Why that one? Perion asked, leaning over to examine the map. Because I employ everyone in it, Shard explained, and I pay well enough that they don't wander, on top of them being proven to be quite loyal and discreet, especially since I make sure to keep watchers on them. You don't really trust anybody, do you? Perion tilted her head. A wise protocol, I grant, but why have a meeting place? And I have a meeting place in the depth of the castle where nobody goes but servants. I need to be in control of this, Shard pointed at the inn. I cannot have even the slightest whisper of this getting out. I will not have my reputation, or yours, muddied. Perion rubbed her temples. You really are an obsessive about this, aren't you? She reached out her hand and wrapped her finger around his. Shard, relax. No, Shard said flatly. It's not in my nature. You can change. Perion smiled. I don't think you'd like me to. Shard let a slight smile cross his lips. If I wasn't this way, you wouldn't be getting your canal. Fair point. Arian slid his glove off and massaged his hand. I'm excited to finally get to see what my life's work begin at long last. Indeed. Shard allowed her to run her fingers over his without withdrawing his hand. Physical contact and generally interacting with anything without his gloves usually irritated him, but for whatever reason he didn't mind when she touched him. Do you really fear that you'll be ruined by this? Arian asked. Not ruined, but I have found that if any time there is a chink in the armor, others will seek to exploit it. Shard placed his gloved hand on his sword. Aborn wrote that one must be a wolf in order to defend what is his, but if he does not appear to be a wolf, then his strength will be consistently challenged. I intend to ensure that no challenge comes my way. Interesting philosophy. She tilted her head. I've mostly been focused on getting my canal built. The politics of this whole thing have not much crossed my mind beyond the notion of funding. Indeed. Shard took a deep breath and glanced toward the ashtray, where the remains of the letter still smoldered. It is becoming increasingly apparent that Natriana is the best opportunity for a sheer majority, since Hemlon is simply going to vote on the day and refuses to state any definitive promises or agreements. You heard that from him as well? Arian sighed, eyed and leaned back in her chair. I attempted to meet with him, but it didn't plan out. Unfortunate, considering Numenor has the largest population of all the kingdoms. Shard tapped his fingers against the table, using the monotonous beat to clear his head. Well, I'll put forward the idea to Natriana. We'll go forward from there. He stood up and walked over to him. I did want to ask you something. All right, Shard tilted his head. Do you desire me as a woman or as a means to greater power? Arian took his hand, one gloved, one uncovered. I just want you to be honest with me. I'm willing to help, but I want to know where we stand. Shard closed his hand on hers, but he didn't answer immediately. He knew that Arian preferred her answers given after a certain amount of thought, so he took a bit of time to construct his response. As much as I can love another person, I love you. His voice was smooth, which seemed to please her. I see. Arian leaned forward and kissed him on the lips. I'll see you tonight. And that's the end.
All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always with the politics. Why do dragons need politics?
Yeah. And now he said the quiet part aloud.
Mm-hmm. Yep, way to dance around the issue. As much as I can love another person. Yeah, how much is that? That's what we're asking, jerk.
Yeah. Yeah, this
He has
one.
no filter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he has a filter so much. He's very, very careful with his words.
Yes.
And yeah, he definitely has a number of sociopathic proclivities and tendencies.
So do all of your characters. What makes this one so different?
You have a fair point, actually. This one, I actually did a bit of research to kind of determine, okay, what kind of sociopathy markers do I want to put on this guy?
Very very interesting. Deliberately writing a psychopath and looking up ways to portray psychopathy.
Sounds like something a psychopath would do.
Yeah,
I thought there was a difference between a psychopath and a sociopath.
There are.
big difference.
Yeah, psychopaths are less emotional than sociopaths. Sociopaths get angrier a lot more based on the research that I found.
Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't sociopathy not a particular diagnosis?
I think it's antisocial now. It's called antisocial nowadays. That's why I say sociopathic tendencies. It's as opposed to calling him a straight sociopath.
I want to I want to ask you a question really quickly. So, are psychopaths born and sociopaths made, or is that just a myth?
I didn't look necessarily at their formation so much as like the traits, but I think that it's kind of a combination of things. And part of sociopathy slash psychopathy is not receiving a certain amount of love when you're in your formative years, because there's a part of the brain that doesn't form properly. One thing. That's actually a good point. Psychopaths are able to blend into their environment a lot better, but sociopaths are a little bit more acting out types.
I see.
So-
I think
socio-
it's possible to be like more predisposed to it than others.
Mhm.
It's very much a combination of nature and nurture in that
Mhm.
regard.
It's when certain parts, both are when certain parts of the brain don't form properly. So it's kind of like psychopathy definitely can form a lot more consistently in stuff in kids that have been institutionalized because they don't or put into the system at a very young age, because they aren't able to get consistent love when they cry. And so certain pathways in the brain they don't form, and they don't believe that anybody will be there for them. So they rely wholly on themselves, but to a destructive degree.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like an example actually in a lot of media is actually Voldemort, because from a very young age he was very sadistic and cruel, and a big part of it was because he was institutionalized from the moment of his birth.
Huh.
So
He wasn't
Yeah.
institutionalized. He
Yeah,
was just in an
well,
orphanage.
put in-
Yeah,
Well,
that's what an orphanage is. Like
well,
that.
Well, okay, you know what? It is a British orphanage. You know, he never stood
Well.
a chance.
well, it's like he's put into the system. I think that the technical term for being put into the system is being called institutionalized, but
It
I
kind
could
of
be
is,
wrong,
I think.
since
Yeah, but it
I
does
remember
have a-
the term.
Hmm.
Remember the term institutionalized being thrown around a bit while I was watching The Shawshank Redemption. I think it's more of a matter of you become dependent upon the bureaucracy and the institutions, the systems.
Well, the family, your family is the freaking state, you know, and it's like
Yes.
with all the malabuse that might provide.
So the definition
Anyway.
of institutionalization is to place or keep someone in a residential institution.
All right.
So, all right. So I think we will conclude it there. Thank you all for coming. Very good stuff. And Codex, you can all be on next week, and we'll just make sure that your internet is okay.
Okay.
Do a mic
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
All right.
Or we got
All right, awesome. You guys are great.
saw the
This is great. Great.
All right.
Everything's great. Very
Yep.
happy. New Year.
okay.
Happy
Yep.
New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year,
everybody.
Happy New Year. Yep.
Yep.
Slavery is wrong.
Bye.
Slavery is wrong. I'm hoping
Yeah.
to have
Just to be clear where I stand on slavery, it's not the way to go.
I'm hoping to have my new computer built soon.
Oh.
And enough.
Speaking of slaves. No, it's like, I don't know. Wage slavery is horrific.
Well,
It's,
the only thing I've enslaved them to do is watch bad films with me. So I'll just have to figure out some bad ones and some good ones. Maybe even a late Christmas.
what was that
movie.
movie by the guys at South Park where it was like,
I don't know.
Whole Team America?
no.
Basketball?
Not that one, no.
Cannibal the musical.
No, that's a good one, but that was there's
Sausage Party?
no, I don't think that's a different one. No,
I think we've
there's
listed
one
them
where,
all.
like, there's a couple of
boy.
Mormon missionaries
The
that
Book of Mormon musical.
no, there's a couple of Mormon missionaries. They're walking around and they wind up like knocking on the door of like a place where they're shooting porns. They're like in LA, and so like they wind up getting involved in the porn business.
Orgasmo.
Orgasmo, yes.
Yeah. I'm
Wow.
I looked up their filmography.
All right. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it in a long time. It's funny. I forget why I brought it up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, with that, anyway, see you guys.
See
See you
ya.
guys later.
Bye.
Enough! Kill me! Just end it.
No.